All right, so today I'm going to show you how to use Adobe Fresco. If you have not downloaded this from your self-service, you need to do that first. Once you've downloaded it, you're going to open it up, and if you have not yet set up an account, you're going to have to set up an account. It will not let you do continue with Google. I'm not really sure why, but it won't. You have to click down here at the bottom where it says sign up. And then you can sign up using your Benton School email address. You just can't sign in with it. I'm not really sure why. I already have an account though, so I'm going to go back and sign into my account. So once you start, it may take you through a tutorial. If you want to watch that tutorial, you can. If you just want to watch this, that's fine too. But basically, you're going to create a new document. I usually like to do screen size. Just because it makes it a nice size, but if you want to play around with some other things, you can. But I usually like to do current screen size. So I've got a document, and it is my preference to zoom out a little bit. So I'm just doing that by pinching so that I can see the borders of my paper, so I know when I'm hitting the borders of my paper. It just makes it a little bit easier for me. That's a personal preference. That's up to you. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of things here. So over here, these are your layers. Layers are super important. Every time you start a new aspect of your project, you want to create a new layer with this button so that way at the end, if you mess up just one part, you can delete just one layer. You can also rearrange layers. So I'll show you real quick. If I was to draw here and then maybe on this layer, let's see, I could draw in red. So because this layer, the red layer, is behind the black layer, the red strokes are behind the black strokes, but I can also drag and move this and change what order they're in. So it's super important every time you're drawing a new object to start a new layer, and you'll save yourself a lot of work in the end. So I'm going to undo back just down to my one layer. So now I'm going to walk you through the different types of brushes. That out of the way. This is just my assistive touch that I'm using so I can show you a cursor on screen. You won't have this. Okay, so you have these brushes first. These are your pixel brushes, and these are ones that have more kind of texture to them. So you have things like charcoal, pencils, things like that, even some ink and lettering. They will not scale, meaning that if you zoom in on them, they will look pixelated, but at normal distance, they look fine. Then you have the live brushes, which are really cool. They have watercolor and oil, and they actually kind of like bleed together. I'll show you them here in a second. And then you have vector brushes, which will scale, meaning you can draw with it and then you can zoom in literally infinitely and it will never get pixelated. So I'll give you a couple examples of each. So I'm going to draw just in black with each of these. So we'll just do some charcoal here. So I'm drawing with my charcoal. Looks like that. I can adjust the size of the brush by clicking here where it says 25. Right now that means it's size 25. I can drag this up or down to adjust what size it is. Usually the bigger the size, the more of the texture you see. I can adjust the flow, which is similar to opacity, by clicking this middle button here. So a lower flow means I see less of it. A higher flow means I see more of it. And then I can adjust the smoothing of it as well. So it doesn't make much of a difference in this brush, but some brushes it does. So there's some vector brush, or some pixel brushes rather. So I'm going to go down here and get my eraser, and I'm going to erase this. There are other ways to do this. You can clear the layer, you can delete the layer. I'm just going to do this for now, just so you can see how the eraser works. The eraser has the same options. You can change the size, change the flow, and change the smoothing of it. All right, so let's look at the live brushes. So first I'm going to show you the watercolor brushes. There's several of them. I'm just going to start with the flat wash. So I'm going to go over here, and this one works better when you can see it in a color. So if you didn't see that, I've clicked this little black dot and then I am choosing what color I want. Even if you choose over here, you're still getting black because this is what adjusts the value, how light or dark it is. So this adjusts the hue and this adjusts the value. So I'm going to go just like a little light blue here. So I'm going to paint it on, and you will see after I'm done painting, it still continues to spread a little bit. And then I'm going to grab a new color, like a little pastel yellow, and I'm going to start painting here. And then when I get to where this brush is, you will see that the colors start to blend and mix together just like they would if it was real paint. So that's pretty cool. You can, I'm going to grab a smaller brush. This is a detail brush, and get a different color for it. And you can see it really acts pretty similar to what actual watercolor acts like. It continues to bleed and blend as you use it. So that's really cool. I'm going to erase this. And then I'm going to show you the oil brushes, which are also under the live brushes, because I think these are really cool too. So I'm going to grab the oil paint round brush, and I'm going to paint on here just a little blob. And then I'm going to grab another color. So you can see here, it's just painting. If I paint up next to this, it's not necessarily going to bleed together, but it is going to blend. It's going to act like I have a paintbrush and I am going over wet paint and picking up some of that wet paint as I go. And you can set it so next time I set my brush down, I've got yellow again, but you can also change the brush dynamics, which are down here, and you can change it to where it does not reload the color. So I can go over here and I can draw with my yellow, but if I drew up here with my yellow and my brush got dirty, basically, and it started turning orange where the yellow and pink were mixing, then when I go over here, it didn't reload the paint onto my brush, so I still have that same orangish color. This can be really good for blending and making like gradients and ombres and things like that. And then I'm going to show you some vector brushes. This is really good for like line art and things like that. These are just some, like I said, some very like smooth brushes. You can zoom in infinitely and they never get pixelated or anything like that. They're not maybe as cool as some of the other ones, but they are pretty useful. So it just gives you nice smooth lines, good for very like graphic, comic, anime style things. You can make some really smooth shapes, and like I say, you can continue to zoom in and at no point will it ever look pixelated. That's what vector brushes do. It's a different style of brush that does not pixelate. It stays smooth at any level. So I'm going to give myself a little background here so that I can show you a couple of things. Okay, so I've given myself a little oil painted background. You can see over here that my oil painting layer is below my vector layer, which is why it's the background and this stuff is on top of it. So I am going to click over here and I'm going to click this little shape thing. So the first thing it does is bring up a square. If you want a different shape, you have to hold down on the button and click basic shapes, and then you can choose something else. I'm going to choose a circle. So this one confused me at first and I had to really figure it out. So I've got my circle on here, but then like, let's say, okay, now I'm ready to go paint. My circle is gone. So what you have to do is you have to click the circle and then you have to choose what color you want to fill it. And then, so I'm going to fill it with this orange, and then you have to click this fill button and then it will fill it. And then you can go paint if you want to. You can also do this. I'm going to move it up over here, maybe. And then you can do erase. And it will erase everything that is within that layer that is inside that circle, which is pretty cool. You can also do mask and select. Mask will do kind of the opposite of that. Oh, I know why. Deselect that one and make a new one. Put it over here. So if you mask, you actually do, it has selected everything that is within that and kind of like, they call it masking. It kind of like deleted everything around it. It's still there. I can make it come back. By deleting the mask, and then everything comes back. This is the selection tool, so if you want to pick up your stuff and move it around, you can. Might or might not be useful. I really don't actually want to do that. I want to cancel. This you can select just part of it and move it around. Move this piece around if I want to. What would really be easier is just to put all of your things in separate layers so you don't have to worry about selecting and moving things around. I can also do the paint bucket tool. I'm going to deselect that area. I can do the paint bucket tool, and if like I wanted to make that a certain color, I could. The eyedropper tool lets you pick a color that you have used before. So if you can't remember how you got that certain color, you can pick a color that way and it'll change your color selection to that. You can also bring in a photo from your camera roll and have it as a separate layer and then make a new layer and draw on top of it to create something that way. And that is about it. There are some other things that you can do in here, but that's the basics of kind of what you need to know. So you are going to read the directions for what you are supposed to create using Adobe Fresco. I've given you some options. Then you're going to draw that thing in Adobe Fresco. And then what you're going to do is you're going to export a time lapse of what you've done in Adobe Fresco. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So the time lapse export is right here in your share sheet. You're going to do publish and export. And then once you're here, you're going to do time lapse export. And it'll actually let you watch it here first. And it shows you everything that you've done in just a quick little snapshot. So then you click export, and then you're going to click save video, and it's going to export it and save it to your camera roll. So after you have exported your time lapse, then you're going to click the share sheet again, click quick export, and then click save image. So you should have two things to attach to Google Classroom. You should have a time lapse to attach, which would just be a short video, and you should have the photo of your completed artwork.